Coach Joe, common swim problem number 5 is dealing with the effects of cold water. We could talk about extra warm water a little bit as well, but I think cold water is more what people struggle with a little bit more frequently. In Texas, we deal with warm water quite a bit. But Joe, this can be numbness in the arms and legs that people experience. This can be getting body shivers as you're swimming. This can be even the early signs of hypothermia. But if we're out in the water and we find ourselves being impacted by the cold water, what should we do?
Yeah, this is one in all my years of racing. I think that the toughest race and the effects of cold water, what I guess probably Arizona, I think that was 2 years ago. I think the water was about 57 degrees. It's very tricky in dealing with that. Some of us hate cold. I hate cold. I'd rather not swim in a wetsuit 100%. But on a given day, you're given a very cold swim. And I know you've experienced those too, Andrew. There is a number of things we can do physically to prep ourselves for a cold swim. Secondly, there are those mental tricks that some of them we've already talked about. Swimming in cold water pre-race is great. The shock value of entering that water, how it feels, kind of takes your breath away. The burning on the face, all of these things, the burning on the hands, and we feel. Racing St. George, for instance, it was a great idea to get in the water 2 times before the race there, because it wasn't as shocking. It didn't. My nerves were much more settled. I knew what I was going to experience. So that's a number one. Number 2 is, what can we do to the body itself to keep it as warm as possible before we enter that water? We want to start out as warm as possible before we hit that water, because we're going to lose body heat real quick. One great thing, my friend and co-coach John Mayfield has always talked about, a thermos of warm water. Sounds silly, but I was the first one in Arizona to pour that down my wetsuit to get that warm water in my body. Your body continues to warm that water. When you enter the water, you then have this barrier. Of course, cold water is going to enter the wetsuit, but it's super tight, and you have that layer of warm water already keeping your body warmer. Secondly, what are we going to do to protect our face? Exposed areas. And that's going to be, go ahead and lube up. You're going to need to take Aquifer, Vaseline, something that's a barrier or a skin protectant. And it's gross. I mean, I Vaselined my face, my hands. I didn't do the palms because you're not going to be able to grip anything for the next 4 days if you do too much Vaseline. But the back of your hands, your feet, your ankles, neck, anything that's going to be exposed, it creates a barrier and it keeps you warmer. Lastly, well, 2 more things. You see sometimes swimmers swim in booties or skull caps. Skull cap is it's not uncomfortable. That's in Coeur d'Alene. I did wear a skull cap due to the water temperature. Booties are they fill with water and they cause a lot of drag. So that's very tricky unless you get some super good fitting booties to protect your feet. And then lastly is a double cap. Double cap is a great idea. Even if you take a latex under a silicone, they don't have to, that combination, latex and silicone, has worked well for me. They don't slip, but it definitely keeps the head warmer, and we lose a lot of body warmth through our scalp, through the head. So that works well. So now you've completely covered yourself with Vaseline, warm water, wetsuit, double cap. You're as warm as possible, but also layering. Don't be standing out there in your kit with your wetsuit down, when it's 40 degrees outside. Stay warm, keep socks on, keep your feet covered until the last possible moment when you take those things off. Now, mentally, when we get in the water, we're going to have that shock moment, no matter what we do.
Sure.
And it goes back to everything we've talked about. Focusing on body position. I'm going to stay as flat as possible. I'm going to breathe to my natural side every stroke. I'm going to keep as much oxygen in this body as I can, because that's going to calm my nervous system. That's going to keep my breath under control and keep my heart rate down. Cold will cause, nerves, heart rate, all of that's going to kind of go into what you said, that scary mode of what am I going to do at this point? But focusing on breathing every stroke is going to keep you calmer. And Lastly, I have so much I could talk about this. I could go on for 17 days. So I'm trying to concise
Joe,
it
this is
into
why
like,
I only booked you for this episode. I don't need anybody else for this.
now,
Joe can
now
cover
we're
it all.
all she's a talker, man. She can talk. I mean, I'm just like, shut up. But when I talk about the distraction mechanism when it comes to cold, it's a game changer because that's something you should practice. In that, I'm going to count my strokes or check out, the wetsuits around me or landmarks. You've got to have something. Singing for me was a big one during Arizona because I was like, I think I sang. I am so cold. Like, I mean, I think it became a song that I created. But anything to kind of make me laugh and like, to lessen the severity of the moment is going to help you.
Yeah, love all of that, Joe. And just it's almost like marginal gains on the bike, right? Like we look for ways to marginally be a little bit faster on the bike. You're talking about trying pairing
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 different ways to be marginally warmer on your swim and letting all of that
Yes.
kind of help see you through to the finish. The most I've ever done personally is the double swim cap. I did that Escape from Alcatraz. I did that 70.3 Greece when the water was cold. I personally don't mind cold water, but I know some people at Ironman Arizona. There was an athlete I was chatting with before the race, and her plan, she had this plan, Joe. Her plan, not like the cold water, Ironman Arizona is not a race where you can get in the water before the race. Like you said, if you can have access to the water, that's great. But some races you don't have that. So her plan was to get into the water, and before she started swimming, before she did anything else, she was going to dunk herself under, kind of sit there for a second, feel what the temp was, and then start going.
Exactly.
And she did that. She got through it okay. I think she was pretty cold by the end, but she got through it. That was her way of, okay, before I start trying to swim with a shocked system, let me shock my system. Let me acclimate to what the
Yes.
temperature of the water is and then start going. So if you go in with a plan, and like Joe said, have a plan for what am I going to do when I start shivering a little bit on the swim. I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to double down on my warming measures. I might pee in my wetsuit, whatever, whatever it takes.